Welcome to the Summer and Cynthia show. Thanks for spending a little bit of time with us today because we've got more to share with you just about life and us and how it is. The two women, one originally from California, one originally from Minnesota, one who lives in Dallas now, one who lives in Chicago now, can come at life from almost different corners, different thinking, different experiences, and yet find out that we have so much in common. So, Summer Martin, what are we going to talk about today?
Oh, I thought we would have a little bit of fun of going into the archives, darling. And let's talk about what we thought we wanted to be when we grow up and maybe how that's changed a little bit today.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, mine, pretty much you can date stamp it because the technology does not exist today. So there was a period of time when my mother was a cashier. She worked the register at the grocery store. It was a way to augment my dad's income. And I think it got her out of the house. She was happy to be away from us kids. And at the grocery store at the time, how you figured out what something was priced was a little sticker that had been applied to the top of the can or the side of the box or whatever it was. And I thought that was about the coolest job. You just had this punching thing that had this long line of stickers, and you just sat and you did and you just did all 12 cans right there. And then you put them up on the shelf. And it was fascinating. And it was such a sense of accomplishment.
That is pretty cool. You wanted to be a grocer
A stocker, even.
or stock, or I was gonna say, or maybe inventory.
That was
Being
before I thought I should run the world. Right. Yeah.
it's
What was your
interesting.
dream job when you were 7?
It's interesting you say that because, and where you got the inspiration from, because as I answer, it's the same. My mother, following my mother's footsteps, she worked in education. So she was a teacher. And I thought I too would be a teacher. And I took teaching pretty seriously, Cynthia, when I was young. I'm talking, I had my dolls lined up. I would have lesson plans because, again, I emulated what I saw. And
Did you lecture your dolls about their permanent record?
ooh, my mother caught me one time telling off my teddy bear because they were disruptive in class. And it's interesting because a few years later, or when I was older, she asked, she was like, "Were you abused or something in class? Where did you get that behavior from?" And no, it was just my bear was being disruptive, and I felt the need to just do what came natural to me at the time and shut it down. Okay. But no, I played school teacher for a while, even into preteens. And in fact, many who knew me back then would have bet money, almost myself, as if I could, that I would have become an educator. But no, I did not. But I did. I thought I would be a teacher.
Well, if anybody's listening, watching us, shout out to every teacher almost that we've had.
Absolutely. Oh my
The
goodness.
saints who taught my kids all the way in public school. I attended public school. They attended public school. My husband, my mother-in-law was a teacher. Teachers, you've got it. You've got
You are
our,
the unsung heroes for sure.
yep.
And even during this time, it's even crazier. I don't know how you did your job when times were normal in a room with 30 different personalities and minds, and now trying to do it virtual and just in all this high level of uncertainty. You guys, woo, props to you. You're amazing, and thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Teachers.
so that was what we first thought we would be when we grow up. And I stumble with that because I talked a little bit with Cynthia, and I didn't prep her a lot for this conversation purposely. But I find it interesting that that question, such a lifelong, if you will, commitment question to ask us at a young age or even at 18, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Where do we get off with that? How do you feel about that?
Um, I feel as though the world has changed on that question a lot about what to expect from an answer to that question. Um, when you are asking it of a teenager, because I think we as adults sort of forget how much learning we've done. As a baby boomer, I think we have totally forgotten that we know how things are built. We know how it has come to pass that any company can be as segmented and specialized as it is. And how do you get that specialized knowledge? And when you're 14 or you're 13 and someone's pigeonholing you into an industry and or a subject area that you know nothing about, and that our very good public schools and private schools can't possibly train them or explain to them what an actuary is, and instead they are entrusted with trying to teach theory and knowledge and keep the mind, get the mind nimble and problem solving. And then kids, I think, rapidly descend into this anxiety, the anxiety that you've talked about, this expectation that they don't know what they don't know what they want to be. They aren't necessarily good at ice skating or gymnastics or basketball. What am I? I'm a failure. I'm not going to go anywhere. That is just a head full of unnecessary baggage that we're hoisting on young people today.
I agree 100%. Or, sometimes parents, you impose your aspirations onto your kids. And that not coming from a judgmental place, but that too, you got to check and make sure, is this more of my dream or is this my child's natural dream that they are, backing and came up with? So, yeah, I just think it's an odd question to ask. Or I should say, an outdated question to ask, especially with the way the world is changing so much. And that it's also in the spirit of, quite honestly, we don't want to do things 20 years anymore. That formula, that model, there are a few, obviously, some people who are okay with doing something for a long period of time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But for many of us, and obviously I'm going to speak for myself first and foremost, that idea of being and doing something 20, 10 years isn't appealing to me. I think life is all about constantly reinventing yourself and evolving and fulfilling those curiosities. And so when I don't buy into the I have to be this for the rest of my life anymore. And that took time. I'm actually just leaning into that in the last 5 years because I had to uncondition myself because, of course, your parents teach you what they know to be best. And so I followed a lot of the blueprint, if you will, of what my parents instilled in me. But the fact of the matter is, it's just not practical anymore. So I'm undoing and unlearning a lot of that and being comfortable with exposing yourself to all the things that you want. So,
Yeah.
what was your first job, Cynthia?
Well, my first job had nothing to do with anything. At 13, I started working during a Minnesota Vikings football season at Metropolitan Stadium, working in a concession stand for $1.85 an hour, guaranteed 5.5 hours.
Okay.
And I rode with a bunch of girls who were also doing the same thing across town to do this. And it would be very cold because that was an outdoor stadium.
Wow.
But it was pretty cool, and I was always kind of wiped out the next day because between being outside and doing all that, you had to do the math in your head. So 2 hot dogs, 2 Cokes, and and a box of candy or whatever, and you have to do it all in your head. Then they hand you a 10, and then you had to do the change all in your head.
Look at you.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, learned me, taught me to think on my feet.
I love that. And so I assume that role, especially with having to be quick on your feet with math and calculation, uh, probably showed itself remnants in terms of later on in life and different roles that you've done,
Yeah.
maybe rooted back to that moment. You
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. And and even at 13, you had um, coworkers who were really sharp and worked hard and were in it for the long haul, and then you had people who whined.
Of
It's
course,
like, this is a
inevitable.
job, this was money.
Yeah.
And it was better than babysitting.
Sure. No, and I'm sure you met interesting people.
Yes, I waited on John Denver and a guy named David Brenner, who nobody really remembers today, but he was a comedian. And John
Okay.
Denver wanted me to sell him a beer, and I couldn't, obviously, because I was way underage and everything. And he was just mad. He like,
I want my beer.
yeah, do you know who I am? I had a couple. Do you know who I am's?
Oh my goodness. Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
What was your first gig?
my first job, and I'm gonna combine it with it was at 16 and post graduating high school, retail. My first job was at Nine West, the shoe store, and it just seemed like a natural fit because I loved fashion. And why not go earn some coins with your favorite pastime of shopping? And so
With a discount, no less, I'm sure.
exactly. And I'll have to say that ever since my experience at Nine West gave me an appreciation for, I never went shoe shopping again going forward without putting my shoes back in the box. It's the little things that you can do to help make it easy for that associate. And then after high school, I worked at Sunglass Hut. And the reason why I bring both of these jobs up is because I really think it planted a seed in me for business. And especially with Sunglass Hut, I actually also learned that I was a good salesperson because it was also about the upsell and things and getting you to, yeah, you may come in and looked at these brands of glasses that may have been, $80, but why don't you come up over here where I knew this particular brand was doing a spiff and maybe they were 300 a frame, but I'm going to tell you why they're worth it. And boom, I was able to do that. So that also the saleswoman in me was born, but also I noticed that I was always intrigued with, the business of Sunglass Hut. What was corporate doing? What were they looking at? What was important to the leaders? And it very much inspired me to major into business going forward into college. But yeah, I retail. I also didn't like having to work on holidays. So shout out to you guys, because again, someone's got to do it. But yeah, that was a good time and very much a lasting impression in a lot of the moves that I made professionally going forward.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
absolutely. Now, do you think here's my curveball? I wanted to know, what do you think about this? Is what you want to be the same as what you want to do?
I sort of feel like I am being what I want to be. I'm not in a position where I really want to continue furthering a career per se. I think my doing needs to very much wrap around what it is I want to be. And
Ooh.
the doing part, because I have skill sets that sort of run the gamut, a lot of them around communications and people skills and strategic. We're going to talk in a future episode about StrengthsFinder because I love it and because I find it to be a very, very supportive tool to sort of figuring out what your next steps can and should be based on who you are. Anyway, so I'm intrigued by doing something where I've got some learning going on. It fits my mission of improving the lives of others, serving others, helping others along, and uses these skill sets. You're never going to sign me on um, to be a numbers person necessarily, or to manage a lot of minutia. But
Mhm.
I kind of know who I am and what it is I want to do, and I'm always on the lookout for new opportunities. Does that
I
make sense? Does that?
Oh, it does. No, in fact, literally what I was about to say is I agree with everything you just said. And I share the same sentiment. It's not so much as about what I want to do anymore because I'm not chasing that invisible carrot that is dangling in front of me, whatever that is. Um, but it is about being what I want to be. if that makes even a drop of sense. And not stifling who I am in order to do what I want to do. And so at this point in my life, welcoming the 40s, it's being 100% confident in knowing what I want and not compromising who I am to get where I want to go.
So I just want to put the caveat on this that we both recognize, even though we have not pre-discussed this topic at all, we
Nope.
both recognize that we are coming to these kinds of decisions, this sense of life reflection and looking forward more from a strategic and a privileged sense than anything else. I
Yes.
get the sense that we've both had jobs that literally we needed to have that weren't necessarily the best fit, but it was a job and
Correct.
paycheck and health insurance or whatever it was. And we did it because it felt like it was a good use of our time and a good use of our skill sets. And it wasn't the worst thing in the world. And and I feel like I earned my money, but I wasn't necessarily happy and they weren't necessarily using the best in me. It is absolutely for sure that somebody who is happy doing what they're doing and feeling productive and utilizing what they do best or bringing what they do best to the table is going to be a much more productive person. And so
Absolutely.
while we recognize that we aren't no longer in the situation that we're doing this only because it's a job and we need the health insurance, it is still a lot of work that has you thinking through what does that look like and how do I not just bow to my self-esteem that somebody actually wants to hire me.
Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that as well. And yes, understanding the huge privilege it is for me to be able to be in a situation to where I can ponder what I want and also be able to say no to what I don't want. I've been grinding the last 15 years in situations and in environments that were not healthy mentally, all to again chase this carrot and try to get up this corporate ladder and crack these damn ceilings and yada 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 yada. I am finally live 2020 this year, you guys. It's just happening. Being in a position where I can put myself and my happiness first and not, put that in beholden to someone else. So yeah, and I don't take that for granted by any means. But it is also paying tribute to where you came from. I mean, it's that little girl who's slanging concession food and dealing with interesting personalities and learning the importance of customer service, and you can't flip out and spaz out when someone disrespects you and all that. You're learning that at 13, or me at 16, with shoes, although I mean it's just shoes, but again, learning the importance of picking up after yourself, also understanding the importance of business and why you do things, and even upselling and giving people selling people the idea of something better, even though that may not be what you thought you needed. It's just funny how life will always constantly teach you lessons.
Yep.
That's all my questions I have for you regarding being your career counselor.
Yes, this episode of Career Counseling with Summer and Cynthia is brought to you by Full of
Good
Hard
people
Knocks.
at
All right. So, folks, if you like what you were watching, if you're going to sit your teenager down in front of us and say, "Here, listen to these ladies,"
right.
then subscribe to
Or shoot
us.
a love note at the email address below.
That's
Either
right.
way.
That's right. I'm sure you remember what your first hourly wage was, and we want to know what that is too. We'll
Yeah,
start a graph. Yeah.
that would be
Right.
fun.
I have wind flying in through my window. It sounds like a hurricane, but it's just Chicago.
It's
So,
Chicago, Chicago. Ooh. You're welcome, world.
Yes, exactly. We are glad you joined us today. Hope you stay tuned for future episodes.
Be safe, wash your hands, wear a mask.
All right. Rock on, people.